On the second Valentine's Day of my marriage, I found my husband kneeling at another woman's grave. That wasn't the part that ended us. The part that ended us came 30 seconds later, when Daniel rested my design award against her headstone and said, "I declined Tessa's graduate school offer. She still thinks Hawthorne rejected her." Snow clicked against the bare branches above Lakeview Memorial. I stood behind a row of cedar trees, one hand over my mouth and the other wrapped around my phone. The voice memo was already recording. Daniel didn't know I was there. Jonah Bell had gone to Lakeview to leave flowers for his father. From the cemetery road, he had recognized Daniel's car and then the glass award in Daniel's hands. His message included a photograph and one sentence. If Daniel told you he was at a client dinner, he lied. An hour earlier, he'd kissed my forehead in our kitchen and told me an out-of-town client had demanded dinner. He'd left in the charcoal coat I bought him for Christmas, carrying my glass Lakefront Rising Designer Award in a padded case. He said the magazine photographer wanted it. As a partner at his father's branding firm, Daniel dealt with photographers and press requests every week. The lie had sounded ordinary. Instead, he had brought it to Alyssa Hart. Her photograph was set into the gray stone. She looked 23, maybe 24, with dark curls, a crooked smile, and the easy confidence of someone who had no idea she would never grow older. Daniel had once told me his first serious girlfriend died in a car crash after college. He had never told me her name, shown me her face, or mentioned that the crash happened on Valentine's Day. Daniel brushed snow from her name with his bare hand. 8 Valentine's Days, he said. I told you this day would always be ours. I kept that promise. His voice cracked. If the crash hadn't happened, we'd be married by now. Maybe we'd have a kid in kindergarten. You'd complain that I worked too much, and I'd pretend I wasn't thrilled every time you told me to come home. He laughed softly, as if he could see the life he was describing. You always wanted to design for Morrow, he said. Now Tessa has... She won for the Glasshouse collection. You should have seen the room, Liz. Everyone stood up. He smiled, but it broke in the middle. She wanted to leave fashion. Can you believe that? She got into that product design program in Boston. Full fellowship. I used the password she gave me, declined the offer, and deleted the confirmation. My knees went loose. 6 years earlier, I had spent an entire spring waiting for Hawthorne Institute of Design to answer me. I had checked the portal before breakfast, between classes, and at 2 in the morning. When the waiting became unbearable, Daniel offered to monitor it for me. He had been my boyfriend for 11 months. You shouldn't have to feel sick every time you open a laptop, he'd said. Let me carry this part. So, I gave him my password. For weeks, he told me there was no decision. Then the deadline passed, and he held me on the floor of my apartment while I cried over a rejection I had never received. Daniel leaned closer to the headstone. I couldn't let her go to Boston, he whispered. And she was too talented to walk away from what you loved. I knew she'd make it if she stayed. His hand settled on my award. We did it, Liz. We. I stepped out from behind the cedars. No, I said. I did it. Daniel spun around. For one naked second, his face showed exactly what he felt. Not shame. Fear of being caught. Tess. He stood too quickly and nearly slipped on the frozen ground. What are you doing here? Jonah Bell saw you from the road. He thought I should know where my award went. Daniel glanced at my phone. I stopped the recording and put it in my coat pocket. You declined, Hawthorne? Let me explain. Did you decline it? He rubbed both hands over his face. You heard one piece of a complicated situation. It is a yes or no question. His jaw tightened. Yes. The word landed more quietly than the snow. I stared at the man I'd met in college, the man who had slept beside me for 4 years, the man who had buttoned the back of my wedding dress with shaking hands. You watched me wait. I knew you would be okay. You watched me think I had failed, and then you took the job at Morrow. Look at what you've built. He gestured toward the award as if it were evidence for the defense. I picked it up. Daniel reached for it at the same time. His fingers closed around my wrist. Careful, he said. Don't damage it. I looked down at his hand. He released me, but too late. I had already understood which thing in this cemetery he was trying to protect. Was I ever your wife? I asked. Or was I just the pair of hands you found after hers were gone? Daniel's face changed. Don't do that. Do what? Turn grief into something ugly. Alyssa died 8 years ago. She isn't a threat to you. You used my life to keep hers going. I made one decision because I loved you and didn't want to lose you. The award slipped against my glove. Daniel lunged to catch it. I stepped backward, hit an iced patch, and went down hard. Pain shot through my right palm where it struck the rough edge of a stone planter. When I lifted my hand, blood ran across the lines of my skin. Daniel froze, then he picked up the award. He wiped snow from the glass with his sleeve before he looked at me. That small movement hurt worse than the cut. I pushed myself up with my left hand. My lawyer will contact you. Tessa, stop. You wanted to keep me from leaving. I backed away as he came toward me. Now you can find out what it feels like when I leave anyway. June Ortiz took one look at my hand and said, Tell me which part of Daniel's body met the award. None. Disappointing. She turned her car toward urgent care. June was Morrow Bridal's production manager and my closest friend. She could find a missing shipment in 3 countries before lunch, but she treated feelings like faulty machinery. Identify the bad part, remove it, keep moving. In the waiting room, I played her the recording. She listened without interrupting. When Daniel said, We did it, her eyes closed. I know you don't want advice right now, she said. That's never stopped you. True. Back up that file in 3 places. Don't post it. Don't send it to his mother. Don't send it to me, because I might become the reason neither of us sleeps tonight. The nurse called my name. 4 stitches later, I left with my right hand wrapped in gauze and 17 missed calls. Daniel had left 12. His mother had left 3. My father had left 2. Within hours, he had begun building a room full of people who could tell me I had misunderstood my own life. I went home with June instead. Daniel appeared outside her apartment before midnight. He knocked softly at first. Then he called my name through the door. I know you're in there. June looked at the baseball bat beside her coat rack. Decorative, she said. Put it down. I haven't picked it up. I opened the door as far as the security chain allowed. Daniel stood in the hall holding a paper bag from the Thai restaurant where we'd had our first date. His hair was wet with melting snow. I brought your usual, he said. You don't get to use noodles as a reset button. His mouth tightened. Can we speak privately? No. He looked past me at June. This is our marriage. It was also my admission offer. He lowered his voice. I know what I did was wrong. Do you? I should have told you about Alyssa. I should have told you I visit her. That isn't the question I asked. Daniel stared at the floor for a moment. You were going to leave Chicago, he said. You were already drifting away. All you talked about was Hawthorne, the labs, the faculty, the life you were going to have in Boston. I asked you to come with me. My father had just made me a partner, and your career mattered more. I was thinking about our future. You were thinking about the future you wanted. He pressed his lips together as if I were being difficult on purpose. That expression was familiar. I had seen it when I wanted to repaint the condo, when I questioned a joint investment, when I said I wasn't ready to have a baby. He would go quiet until I mistook the absence of an argument for agreement. Alyssa wanted to work at Morrow, he said. She had a gift. When she died, all that possibility disappeared. Then I met you, and you had that same spark. You mean I was useful? I mean, I believed in you. You believed in the version of me that could finish her story. Tessa, she is dead. And somehow she still got more say in my life than I did. He flinched. I closed the door. The next morning, June drove me to the condo while Daniel was supposed to be at work. I packed passports, tax records, my mother's sewing tin, and every sketchbook I had kept since college. Daniel came home before we finished. He stood in the bedroom doorway while June folded my clothes into suitcases with military precision. "You don't have to make this permanent," he said. I kept packing. "Tessa, please." He crossed to the closet and pulled a cedar box from the top shelf. I had never seen it before. He lifted the lid just far enough for me to glimpse yellowed paper and a black sketchbook tied with ribbon. "This is Alyssa's," he said. "I can show you. You aren't a copy of her." On the open page, a bridal jacket curved away from the body in a high translucent collar. My glasshouse collection used the same curve. Daniel snapped the lid shut. June stopped folding. "Where have I seen that drawing?" I asked. "You haven't." I remembered a folder Daniel had sent me 2 years earlier, when I was stuck on the collection. Museum glass. Conservatory roofs. A close-up of a vintage sleeve. The high collar had been there, disguised as an image Daniel called inspiration, instead of the sketch it came from. "How much of her work did you feed me?" "That isn't what happened. Give me the box." He held it against his chest. June moved between us. "Don't." Daniel wasn't looking at her. He was looking at my bandaged hand. "I helped you," he said. "You were blocked, and I helped." With her ideas. With ideas that would have died in a box. The room became very still. I zipped my suitcase. "Keep it," I said. "My attorney will ask for it." By noon, I had retained Renee Patel, a divorce lawyer with square glasses and no interest in dramatic revenge. Her first instruction was to preserve the original recording. Her second was not to threaten anyone with it. Her third was to change every password Daniel might know. I did all three. Then I emailed Hawthorne Institute's admissions office. I wrote only facts. My name, the program, the year I applied. A request for any surviving record of the decision and the response made through my account. When I pressed send, my injured palm throbbed beneath the gauze. For the first time in 6 years, I allowed myself to ask what had really happened to the door I thought was closed. Daniel's mother called from a number I hadn't blocked. "Alyssa was practically our daughter," Diane Mercer said. "We lost her too." I stood in June's kitchen, eating cereal at 3 in the afternoon because I had forgotten breakfast and lunch. "Did you know Daniel visited her every Valentine's Day?" Silence. "Diane? He needed one day." "Did you know he told me he was working?" "We assumed you knew he wasn't ready to discuss it." That was a polished sentence for a lie everyone had agreed not to name. "How many times did you cover for him?" "Tessa, please don't interrogate me. You called me." She exhaled sharply. "His grief predates you. It has nothing to do with your marriage." He declined my admission so I could fulfill her career dream. This silence lasted longer. "He did what?" "Diane knew about the grave. She knew nothing about Hawthorne. That distinction mattered. It didn't excuse her, but it stopped the conspiracy from growing into something too large to understand. Daniel's best friend Mark admitted he had invented 2 client dinners and 1 flat tire. He said Daniel always came home after the cemetery. He said nothing physical had happened. He said Alyssa was dead, as if death were a moral credential. I blocked him too. 3 days later, my father asked me to come to his house in Aurora. "Ruth is worried about you," he said. Mentioning Ruth was what got me there. Daniel's car was in the driveway. I almost kept driving. Then Ruth came onto the porch in slippers, saw my face, and looked back toward the living room. "Frank," she called. "You told me Tessa invited him." My father appeared behind her. "Everybody needs to calm down. I should have left." Instead, I walked inside, because some stubborn part of me still wanted my father to hear the whole story and choose me. Daniel sat on the couch with untouched coffee in front of him. My father took the recliner, the seat that made him look like a judge. "He went to a cemetery," Dad began. "I visit your mother every year. You tell Ruth when you go." "That's different." "Why?" He frowned. "Because it is. Ruth sat beside me at the dining table. I told them about Hawthorne. I told them about the portal and the fellowship. I played the section of the recording where Daniel admitted what he had done. Dad shifted in his chair. I don't understand all these online systems, he said, but you have a good career now. Maybe he saw something you didn't. Ruth stared at him. Frank, I'm not saying he handled it right. I'm saying marriage is bigger than one bad choice. It wasn't his choice, Ruth said. He was thinking about their future. He was thinking instead of her. Dad looked irritated. Ruth rarely interrupted him. Daniel leaned forward, his hands clasped. I knew Tessa could make it in fashion. She was brilliant even when she doubted herself. If she'd gone to Boston, we would have ended. Did she say that? Ruth asked. We were 24. Long distance doesn't work. So you lied before she could decide whether to try. Daniel's voice sharpened. I loved her. Ruth glanced at me. He keeps saying that as if it answers a different question. My father's face reddened. Ruth, stay out of it. She rose so fast her chair scraped the floor. You brought this into my living room under my name. I am in it. No one spoke. Ruth walked to the hallway closet and returned with a blue metal sewing tin. I had packed it from the condo, but June had given it to Ruth for safekeeping after I left a suitcase in her car. The tin had belonged to my mother. By the time I was 16, rheumatoid arthritis had stiffened her fingers so badly that ordinary buttons could make her cry. I used to replace them with loops, wide tabs, and crude magnetic clasps from the hardware store. Those experiments were why I had applied to product design instead of a fashion master's program. I wanted to make beautiful things that didn't punish people for needing help. Ruth placed the tin in my lap. Your mother kept every ugly little prototype, she said. They were very ugly, terrible. She showed them to everybody. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Daniel watched us. I never said you couldn't make those things, he said. I opened the tin. Inside were spools of thread, bent hooks, 2 wide zipper pulls, and a square of blue fabric with a crooked magnetic closure. You decided which part of me deserved a future, I said. That's not fair. You were willing to lose every version of me that didn't fit your plan. Dad stood. You are blowing up your life over something that worked out. There it was, the old rule of my childhood. If the ending looked acceptable to him, nothing done to get there counted. I closed the tin. Ruth, are you coming? She picked up her purse. Dad blinked. Where are you going? To get pie, Ruth said. Your daughter hasn't eaten. She followed me out without asking permission. Daniel didn't. Hawthorne answered 12 days after I contacted them. I opened the email at June's dining table with Renee beside me and my laptop connected to an external drive. The admissions coordinator had found my archived file. I had been admitted to the Master of Human-Centered Product Design program with a full tuition fellowship and a paid teaching assistantship. The offer was posted at 9:58 on a Friday night. My account declined it 16 minutes later. I remembered that night. Daniel had come over with takeout and insisted we watch an old comedy because I had spent the entire week refreshing the portal. At 10, he carried my laptop into the bedroom. No more checking, he'd said. You get one night off. At 10:14, while I sat on the couch laughing at a movie, he erased Boston. Hawthorne no longer had the technical logs that might identify a device. 6 years was too long. The record proved I had been admitted and that my account declined. The cemetery recording supplied the rest. Renee read every line twice. This is strong evidence, she said. It is not permission to detonate your life online. You say that like you've met June. I have met June. From the kitchen, June called. I can hear both of you. Renee copied the file into our evidence folder. We use what is necessary, where it is necessary. We do not turn your divorce into content. My phone rang. Celeste Moreau, Morrow Bridal's creative director, rarely called before 9, unless a building was on fire. Can you come in? She asked. We have a problem. The problem waited in a conference room at Morrow's West Loop studio. Someone had sent Bridal Wire, a small but vicious industry newsletter, photographs of Alyssa Hart's sketchbook. The anonymous sender claimed my award-winning glasshouse collection had been built from the work of a dead designer. 3 pages were displayed beside photographs of my gowns. The resemblance wasn't imaginary. Alyssa had drawn a translucent standing collar that curved around the jaw. I had used a softer version in organza. She had sketched pearl closures running diagonally across a bodice. Mine crossed the back of a reception dress. Her sleeve opened at the wrist like a folded petal. So did mine. Celeste sat across from me with our general counsel and the head of communications. "Tell us how this happened," she said. I wanted to deny everything. Instead, I told the truth. I explained Daniel's inspiration folders. I explained the cedar box. I played the part of the recording where he called my collection Alyssa's dream. No one rushed to reassure me. That made me trust them more. "We need to review your development archive," Celeste said. "Until then, the National Buyer campaign is paused." The campaign was supposed to launch in 5 weeks. It was the biggest opportunity of my career. Am I suspended? No. "But you are off glasshouse decisions until we establish provenance." I nodded. My phone lit beneath the table. Daniel had sent a message. It read, "This is what happens when private grief becomes public. Come home, and we can fix it before people decide you stole from her." I handed the phone to Renee. She read it and passed it to Morrow's counsel. Celeste's expression hardened. "Did your husband send the sketchbook?" "I don't know yet." Another message appeared. "I only asked the newsletter to consider the similarities. I can explain that it was a misunderstanding." This time, nobody had to ask. The room blurred at the edges. I put both palms on the table until my vision steadied. Daniel had stolen one future to keep me. Now he was threatening the future I had built because I refused to stay. Celeste leaned back. "Go home," she said. "I can work." That wasn't a punishment. It was an instruction to retrieve every sketchbook, file, email, sample note, and fitting photograph you have. If the work is yours, show us how it became yours. For the first time since the cemetery, someone had given me a problem I knew how to solve. I stood. "How long do I have?" "The review committee meets Monday." It was Thursday morning. June was already opening her laptop. Design looks romantic after it is finished. Before that, it looks like bad handwriting, coffee stains, muslin scraps, and 37 files named some variation of final. June and I spent 4 days inside that mess. Morrow's servers held dated versions of every pattern. My old sketchbooks showed how the glasshouse silhouettes had grown from photographs I took at the Lincoln Park Conservatory. Fitting notes documented each change from paper to fabric. The collection was mine. The uncomfortable part was also mine. Daniel's folders had influenced 3 details. I had trusted the images because I trusted him. I had redrawn, tested, and transformed them without knowing they began in Alyssa's sketchbook. By Sunday night, we could prove I had not copied her finished designs. We could not pretend she had never entered the work. At Monday's review, I presented the archive myself. When I finished, Morrow's counsel said the evidence did not support plagiarism. Celeste agreed. Relief moved through me, but it didn't last. The buyer campaign still featured the 3 disputed gowns. "Pull them," I said. Celeste studied me. "Legally, we don't need to. I need to. Those are the strongest looks." "Then let me replace them." The head of production made a sound that was almost a cough and almost a laugh. "In 5 weeks?" 4.5. Celeste removed her glasses. "With what?" I set my mother's blue sewing tin on the table. Inside it, beneath the bent zipper pulls, I had found a folded drawing I made at 16. It showed a formal jacket with a wide hidden loop instead of tiny buttons. The proportions were terrible. The idea wasn't... With the collection I was trying to make before Daniel decided which designer I should become, Celeste looked at the drawing for a long time. 3 looks, she said. No extra runway budget. June controls the schedule, and if she says you're done, you're done. June sighed. I hate when power goes to my head. We began that afternoon. I knew fabric, balance, and the architecture of a body in motion. I did not know enough about designing for limited grip, chronic pain, prosthetic limbs, or sensory sensitivity. In college, I would have guessed. At 30, I knew guessing was another way of deciding for someone. I called Jonah Bell. He answered on the second ring. How's your hand? Annoyingly attached. Good. I was worried June had plans for it. Jonah worked for a product design cooperative that partnered with an accessibility lab on the South Side. In college, we had spent 1 semester building kitchen tools together. He was patient with prototypes and impatient with people who called disabled users inspiring for existing in public. I asked if he could introduce me to the lab's apparel group. Yes, he said. Then, after a pause, but I need to tell you something first. I waited. When I sent you that photograph of Daniel, I told myself it was only because you deserved the truth. Wasn't it? Mostly. The word tightened something in my chest. What was the rest? I never got over you. I shut my eyes. Jonah and I had been close in college. He was the person who first told me about Hawthorne. We had planned to apply together, but after I believed I was rejected, I stopped answering his calls. Shame made me cruel in quiet ways. Years later, we reconnected at trade events and pretended none of it had mattered. You saw an opening, I said. I saw your husband at a grave with your award. I would have sent the photograph if I were happily married with 6 children. But you also hoped. Yes. At least he didn't turn the truth into a speech about purity. I can't be somebody else's second chance right now. I know, do you? I do now. He gave me the apparel coordinator's name and said he would email an introduction. He didn't ask to see me. He didn't offer to save the collection. Before we hung up, he said, Tessa, I'm sorry my motive wasn't clean. Thank you for telling me. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't rejection either. The next morning, 6 people joined us around Moro's fitting table. One was Marisol Vega, a trial attorney planning her wedding after a stroke, left her with limited movement in her right hand. She examined my first prototype, a gown with oversized satin loops down the back. This is accessible, she said. I waited for the rest. It is also hideous. June covered a laugh with her clipboard. Marisol smiled. You invited honest people, right? I did. Then don't make me look like I'm wearing medical equipment disguised as a wedding dress. I want the kind of dress that makes my fiancé forget how language works. I picked up my pencil. Tell me what your hands need. For the next 2 hours, I listened. One new gown closed at the shoulder instead of the spine. Another used a low-resistance side fastening hidden beneath a fold of silk. For the third, I separated the gown into 2 balanced pieces so it could be put on while seated without twisting the body. None of them look like solutions. They look like clothes someone might choose because they were beautiful. 3 weeks into the redesign, Daniel came tomorrow. Security called before letting him pass the lobby. Send him away, June said. Daniel stood on the other side of the glass doors with my award case in his hand. 5 minutes, I told security. You stay with us. I met him in the lobby. He looked thinner. I noticed without wanting to. I brought this back, he said. He opened the case. The Lakefront Award lay inside, cleaned and polished. It belongs to you. It always did. His eyes flicked toward the security guard. Can we not do this with an audience? You came to my workplace. Daniel closed the case. I corrected the email to bridal wire. I told them the similarities were coincidental. They weren't entirely coincidental. Then what do you want me to say? The truth. The truth will destroy your reputation. It might bruise it. You were counting on me being too afraid to find out. His expression hardened. I was trying to make you understand what happens if you drag Alyssa into this. You sent her work to a publication because you told my family what happened. I answered your mother's questions. I never posted the recording or used Alyssa's name publicly. You humiliated me. The security guard looked down, suddenly fascinated by his shoes. Daniel stepped closer. "Come home," he said. "We issue one statement." I explained that I overreacted because I was grieving. Morrow keeps the collection. We go to counseling. And Hawthorne? I apologized. You apologized for getting caught. I made you successful. The words came out before he could soften them. He glanced away. I felt the old reflex rise in me. Keep the peace. Lower my voice. Give him a graceful way to take it back. Then I thought of my mother trying to close a cuff with swollen fingers while I stood beside her with pliers and a ridiculous square of blue fabric. If you made me, I said, you can watch me do it without you. Daniel's face lost color. Is this because of Jonah? No. He has wanted you since college. This is not about which man gets me next. You're having an affair. Don't make this ugly, Daniel. Even if I loved him, I'd only be keeping a small room in my heart for someone else. You told me that wasn't betrayal when the other woman was dead. He stared at me. Our marriage isn't dead. You buried it the night you declined, Hawthorne. The security guard took one slow step farther away. Jonah gave me one professional introduction. He was honest about wanting more, so I told him no. Daniel laughed once, without humor. How noble. More honest than anything you've given me. He shoved the award case across the security desk. You think a few clever closures make this your life again? It never stopped being my life. I turned toward the studio. Communicate through Renee. Behind me, he said, if you file, I will fight you on everything. I looked back. Then fight. The word didn't feel brave. It felt expensive. Daniel knew our finances. He knew my father would pressure me. He knew the spring campaign could still collapse. He could slow the divorce, challenge the condo, and turn every private injury into a billable hour. But he had built his control around one assumption. Eventually, discomfort would make me surrender. That assumption had been correct for 6 years. It wasn't correct anymore. Renee filed the divorce petition the morning after Daniel came to Morrow. That afternoon, Alyssa's mother called me. Bridal Wire had contacted Marianne Hart while fact-checking Daniel's accusation. The sketchbook belonged to Alyssa's estate, and the publication wanted permission to reproduce it. Marianne had learned in a single phone call what Daniel had done with her daughter's work. Renee approved the conversation and stayed beside me while I answered. We gave Daniel that sketchbook after the funeral, Marianne said. He said he needed something that still had her hands in it. We never gave him permission to use the drawings. Her voice sounded tired rather than angry. Alyssa could be stubborn. She could be selfish. She was also kind, and she would have hated what he did to you. I looked down at my mother's blue sewing tin. You don't have to defend her to me. I'm not defending her. I'm apologizing because my husband and I helped Daniel turn a real girl into a saint who could never disagree with him. Marianne had already asked Daniel to return the sketchbook. She and her husband had also told him not to contact them again. For years, he told us visiting Alyssa helped him remain loyal to her memory, she said. I believed him. But he didn't keep our daughter alive. He used her to erase you. After the call, Renee gave me a minute before opening the divorce file. 5 weeks after the cemetery, and 9 days before the buyer presentation, we met for mediation in a conference room that smelled like burnt coffee. Daniel sat beside his attorney. Renee sat beside me. A retired judge occupied the end of the table and reminded us that nobody would leave with everything they wanted. Daniel wanted the condo. I didn't care. He wanted a broad non-disparagement clause that would prevent me from discussing Alyssa, Hawthorne, or the sketchbook with anyone. I cared very much. He also wanted me to waive any claim arising from the admission portal and confirm that he had contributed creatively to Glass House. Renee slid his proposal back across the table. No. Daniel looked at me, not her. You know I helped. You supplied material without disclosing its source. I sent mood boards. Husbands send their wives ideas. Husbands don't keep the original sketches hidden in a box. His attorney murmured something. Daniel ignored him. Alyssa had no family in fashion. No one was going to use them. Her mother said they weren't yours to use at all. She wants the sketchbook home. Daniel went still. You spoke to Marianne? Bridal Wire did. You made Alyssa part of a professional accusation, not me. His attorney put a hand on his sleeve, but Daniel pulled away. They weren't yours to launder through me, I said. The mediator asked us to lower the temperature. Renee opened our evidence folder. She did not present it like a dramatic reveal. She began with my Hawthorne offer and the portal decline, then used the cemetery recording to connect Daniel to both. Next came Daniel's messages admitting he sent Alyssa's work to Bridal Wire. Morrow's provenance review showed what was mine, while the newsletter's written response established what Daniel had withheld from me. Finally, Renee placed a proposed settlement on the table. I would not publish the cemetery recording or use Alyssa's name for promotion. Daniel would provide the sketchbook to a neutral custodian, identify every copy he had made, correct his accusation in writing, and withdraw any claim to my designs. We would divide the marital assets, sell the condo, and proceed without turning the case into a public spectacle. He read the first page and pushed it away. She is leaving me for another man. The mediator glanced at me. I'm leaving because my husband accessed my admissions account, declined a fellowship, concealed it for 6 years, and then threatened my career when I discovered the truth. Daniel's hands curled into fists on the table. You loved me before he sent that photograph. I loved who I thought you were. I am still that person. That person never existed. His face folded for a second. I nearly reached for him. Muscle memory was dangerous that way. Daniel recovered. What about Alyssa? He asked. Do I have to pretend she meant nothing because Tessa is jealous of a dead woman? I looked at him across the table. For weeks, I had tried to find the clean sentence that would make him understand. There wasn't one. Understanding would require him to see my autonomy as something real, not as an obstacle between his intention and his preferred result. You were allowed to love her, I said. You were allowed to grieve her for the rest of your life. You were not allowed to recruit me into that grief without telling me. He said nothing. You didn't love 2 women, Daniel. You loved one memory and one set of hands. His eyes filled. That's cruel. It is also the first honest thing either of us has said about our marriage. He looked down at the settlement. If I sign this, is there any chance you come back? No. Are you in love with Jonah? This was never about another man. That is the part you still don't understand. The mediator asked if Daniel wanted a private caucus with his attorney. They left the room. I sat with my right hand curled in my lap. The stitches had come out, but the scar still pulled when I bent my fingers. Renee poured me water. You did well, she said. I feel terrible. Those can happen at the same time. Daniel returned 20 minutes later. He signed. The pen shook once when he reached the page about Hawthorne. Then, he put it down. The divorce would take months to finalize. The condo still had to be sold. Bridal Wire still had to publish its correction, and Morrow still had a buyer presentation in 9 days. When Renee handed me my copy of the agreement, the future no longer contained Daniel's right to choose on my behalf. That was enough for one morning. Marisol wore the first new gown in the buyer presentation. That morning, Bridal Wire published its correction. It identified Daniel as the source of the allegation and stated that he had failed to disclose 2 facts. He had introduced Alyssa's images into my design process, and I had never been told where they came from. The correction did not call him a monster. It didn't need to. By noon, both bridal companies represented by his father's branding firm had paused their accounts. Mercer Brand Strategy announced that Daniel was stepping away from client work while the firm reviewed his conduct. He had turned private grief into a professional weapon. The professional consequences belonged to him. Backstage, she stood in front of a mirror while June checked the schedule, and 3 assistants moved around us with garment bags. "My fiancé is in the 3rd row," Marisol said. "If she doesn't cry, I want a refund. You are not paying for this." "Then I want someone else's refund." She lifted her left hand to the silk fold at her shoulder, found the hidden pull, and released it with one smooth motion. The bodice opened without anyone reaching behind her. Her smile vanished. "What's wrong?" I asked. She turned toward the mirror. "Nothing." Her eyes shone. "I just realized I won't need my sister in the bathroom with me at my own wedding." June looked down at her clipboard. "I adjusted the shoulder seam even though it didn't need adjusting." "Your fiancé is definitely going to cry," I said. Marisol laughed and swatted at me. The presentation lasted 18 minutes. The applause was polite. 2 buyers asked cautious questions about production costs, and one said the market might be too narrow. Then, a national retailer requested samples of all 3 adaptive looks. Celeste scheduled a meeting. That was how careers usually changed. Another meeting added to the calendar. After the room cleared, I found Jonah near the freight elevator holding 2 coffees. "June told me bribery was the only way backstage," he said. June was right. He offered me 1 cup. "Decaf. You get mean after 4. "I get efficient. You once made a freshman cry over a glue gun." He pointed it at my face. He was unplugging it. I took the coffee. For several weeks, Jonah had kept his distance. The accessibility lab told him about our progress, but he never inserted himself into the project. When we needed a materials contact, he sent a name and disappeared again. It should not have felt remarkable for a man to respect a boundary. After Daniel, it did. "Marisol looked incredible," he said. "She did." "You did that. A team did. Still terrible at accepting praise. Still suspicious of people who arrive holding beverages." He smiled, then grew serious. "I owe you a better apology." "You already apologized." "I said my motive wasn't clean." "That made it sound like wanting you was the problem." "Wasn't it?" "No. The problem was that I let wanting you affect when and how I told you. I should have sent the photograph without hoping it bought me a place in what happened next. I studied him. Thank you. I don't expect anything. I know, and I did know. That was new." He glanced toward the showroom, where assistants were packing the final gowns. "Do you want to get dinner?" I felt his hope before he managed to hide it. "My divorce isn't final. Dinner can be dinner. Not for you." He considered arguing, then nodded. "Fair." The elevator doors opened behind him. Before he stepped inside, I said, "Ask me again when it is final." His hand stopped between the doors. "Is that a promise?" "It is permission to ask a question. Designers and their technical language." He stepped into the elevator smiling. The doors closed, and my coffee was still hot when I went back to work. The divorce became final 9 months after Lakeview Memorial. Renee and I walked out of the courthouse into a hard blue October morning. June waited at the curb with Ruth and a bakery box. "It's not a divorce cake," Ruth said. June lifted the lid. The words "Freedom looks good on you" were written across the frosting. "It's an administrative status cake," June said. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the car. Dad did not come. He had left me 3 voicemails over the summer. In the last one he said, "Ruth tells me I was wrong." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest he had ever come. I saved the message without answering it. I wasn't ready to call him. Saving the message was all I could manage. Hawthorne could not reinstate an offer from 6 years earlier. The program had changed. 2 professors had retired, and fellowships were awarded year by year. The admissions director invited me to apply again. This time, I built the portfolio myself. I included my ugly blue prototype, the new bridal pieces, and a case study documenting what I had learned from the apparel group. I wrote about design as a transfer of control. A door, garment, or tool could either demand that a person adapt to it or make room for the person already there. When I finished the application, I changed the password to something no one else knew. Then I called Jonah. He answered with traffic noise behind him. Is everything final? He asked. Renee filed the last order at 10:23. You sound like you have a time-stamped certificate. I have learned the value of records. He went quiet. Jonah? I'm trying not to ask too fast. Ask. Dinner? Yes. Tonight. Too fast. Friday? Acceptable. He took me to a tiny Ethiopian restaurant where we'd eaten as broke college students. The owner had changed. The walls were green instead of yellow, and the table by the kitchen still tilted to the left. Jonah folded a napkin under one leg. Still crooked, he said. Some things resist redesign. Halfway through dinner, I put down my fork. I owe you something too. He waited. I was right to ask for space. You were. But I used your mistake as proof that I couldn't trust you at all. It was easier than admitting I missed you. Jonah's eyebrows lifted. Past tense? Don't get ambitious. Too late. I told him about Hawthorne. If I got in, I might move to Boston. His cooperative was in Chicago. Neither of us pretended geography would solve itself because we wanted the same dessert. Are you still asking me out? I said. Yes. Even if I leave? Also yes. That could be inconvenient. You have always been inconvenient. I kicked him under the table. He caught my ankle between his shoes, grinning. Outside, the wind pushed leaves along the sidewalk. We walked toward the train without touching until we reached the corner where our routes split. Jonah stopped beneath the red glow of a pharmacy sign. Can I kiss you? The question was simple. So was my answer. Yes. His mouth was warm. One hand hovered near my waist until I pulled it closer. When we separated, the train rumbled overhead. Friday again? He asked. Ask me Friday, he laughed. I walked home alone, carrying the bakery's last piece of administrative status cake in a white cardboard box. At the next corner, it slid sideways and smeared the word freedom against the lid. I carried it home anyway. 1 year after the cemetery, Valentine's Day arrived on a Friday. Chicago was buried under fresh snow. Jonah and I sat in the back of a coffee shop near my apartment, sharing a cinnamon roll and pretending not to watch the clock. He had made a dinner reservation for later. I had warned him that if a ring appeared anywhere near dessert, I would leave him with the bill. I don't own a ring, he said. That sounded rehearsed. I rehearsed several reassuring statements. That was the least alarming. My laptop chimed. The subject line read, Hawthorne Institute admission decision. I stopped breathing. Jonah looked at the screen, then at me. Do you want me to go outside? The coffee shop windows were white with wind-blown snow. You would last 6 minutes. 7. I wore wool socks. I reached for his hand, then changed my mind and placed both of mine on the keyboard. Stay. I signed into the portal. The decision letter loaded slowly. Hawthorne had admitted me to the Master of Human-Centered Product Design program. The fellowship covered tuition. For several seconds, the words refused to become real. Then I read them aloud, my voice breaking in the middle. Jonah pressed both palms flat against the table. He didn't touch the laptop. He didn't tell me what this meant for us. He waited. Below the letter were 2 buttons. Accept offer. Decline offer. I'm afraid, I said. Me too. Boston is far. It is. Morrow offered to let me consult from there, but nothing about this will be easy. Probably not. I looked at him. You're being aggressively unhelpful. I have opinions. None of them get to move your hand. Outside, a city bus pushed through the snow. Cups knocked softly behind the counter. Someone near the window laughed. The world did not go quiet for my decision. It didn't need to. Across the table, Jonah kept both hands wrapped around his coffee. Mine stayed on the trackpad. I clicked accept.